Uno, dos, tres, catorce. Hola, señoritas, y señores. Me llamo Ricardo Queso. Let's mambo!
Good afternoon, everyone. May I request you to take a seat? We'll start the session in 2 minutes. Good afternoon, everyone. IFKI, in partnership with the TNP India, is extremely proud and honored to launch in India the first edition of Les Histoires de Demain, the story of tomorrows. Les Histoires de Demain have been created by TNP in France in 2015. a unique platform for networking, establishing contacts and exchanging ideas by offering an excellent opportunity to share best practices while building relationship between decision makers. Today we'll focus on the theme, how green and digital can boost the economy. We have invited corporate leaders whose vision has helped their organization navigate this green and digital transition effectively and sustainably. Considering the limited number of seats available, we have decided to stream live this event on YouTube, and everybody can reach our YouTube channel to see live the session now. I will now ask Mr. Sumit Anand, the President of KIFKI, to deliver his welcome address.
Thank you, Bruno. Oops. Is it working? No, it's gone off. It's working? Yeah? Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome. So nice to be all together in person in this fabulous location. What a great view we have on both sides of this lovely hall. So nice to be with our friends from TNP. Thank you very much, Benoit and Matthew, for working with the Chamber to organize this lovely event. I'd like to welcome Monsieur Jean-Marc Serret-Charlet, who's our Consul General of France in India. Warm welcome to you, Monsieur le Consul, and so good to see you also. Welcome to everybody here. This is going to be a very interesting session. I think we're all here to listen and to learn, so I'm not going to speak for long. I just want to comment on the title, Les Histoires de Demain. What a lovely title. And you know, this is the beauty of the French language also. It sounds so much nicer in French than the stories of tomorrow. So it's so nice to have a subject like that. And it's interesting that you mentioned that this was conceived in 2015, because Les Histoires de Demain actually is the stories of today. And now, right? Tomorrow has come in that sense, right? And in India, we are living through that. COVID has really restructured the way we live and work with digitalization. And green is an interesting subject in India. A few years ago, if we talked about oil and gas, and Jose is here and he'll be speaking, we'll be talking about oil and gas and energy. We talked about energy, we were talking about oil and gas, and I'd always complain that why is BP here and Shell here and where is Total? Well, here you go, and Total is here not for oil and gas, but for renewable energy, right? And what a massive investment they've made. So it's interesting to talk about that. We were at a meeting a few days ago and we were talking about, why is green growing in India? Where is this motivation coming from, right? Is it top down? Is it bottom up? And I think in a country where talent is so important, the reality is this younger generation in India does not want to inherit the world that we are leaving them. And they want to make sure that the world gets better. And they're looking for their companies to make a change, and they want to work on those companies where there is a focus on the green economy and sustainability. So, again, a superb, what a great topic for discussion. I'm sure we're all going to learn a lot. And I'm going to actually leave it there. I guess we are fortunate that TNP is leading this with us. TNP is one of the leading French consulting firms that came out of Bossard, if I'm not mistaken. For somebody like me who went to France 30 years ago, I remember Bossard. It was one of the places to work. And I'm sure TNP is even a much bigger success story. And it's so good to hear that you have a big India practice. It's not easy to succeed in India in consulting. And I guess the credit goes to Matthew, who's here all the time, trying to build more relations and bring in more business. So congratulations, Matthew. And so good to see you today as well. So I think with that, just welcome to everybody, and let's get going. Before we do that, we have a very important speaker, our Consul General, and especially I'm sure he'll touch upon how France and India are playing an important role in cooperating in these fields. And we look forward to hearing from you, Monsieur le Consul. Thank you.
Try to be careful with this. It works. Okay, hello. Hello and welcome to everybody. I was supposed to speak for 30 minutes, so please take note. No, I will try to be a bit shorter because you are the one who have to speak and I'm here to listen to you. Well, economy faces, you know that, a major problem because of climate change and a threat on the biodiversity. We can't escape this challenge anymore. You know the famous sentence of President Chirac who in 2002 in Johannesburg said, our house is burning and we look elsewhere. And it's still very valid because we still have to face this major problem. Unfortunately, we keep, collectively, and unfortunately, we keep being distracted from fighting this. I'm thinking just now at the terrible bad story which takes place in Ukraine because of aggressivity and the desire of war of a country against another. So we spend a lot of time as diplomats and working on these issues rather than working on the serious issues which is the biodiversity and climate change. However, the world community has started to adapt. COP21 some years ago, 2015, in France was an important step to raise our awareness, collective awareness. France was leading, India was backing. The pledge of India was very important at that time. It was one of the major partners which allowed the agreement we had in Paris during the COP21, but it's not the end of the story because the pressure is still on, is still here, and we have to carry on. And honestly, the last COP, the COP26 in Glasgow, some months ago, was not utterly satisfactory. Yes, awareness is raising, but still we are not there. And we collectively failed to make substantial progress to meet the climate goals, especially to limit the global temperature rise below 1.5 degrees. So that's something we still have to work on. I will come back to that. Of course, India is still a very important actor. We work, France and India, together. Especially, we have launched together the Solar Energy Alliance, which is based now, which is an international organization based in Delhi, close to Delhi. So that's a good step. But still, we have to work, and it's true that we are expecting more from all countries, including India, including France, and so as to be able to face the challenge. France is determined to go forward and to meet its pledges. And digital is at the heart of our transformation. Expert estimates that digital is responsible for 4% of carbon dioxide emissions, but at the same time, it facilitates a reduction of 15 to 20% of the emissions in the economy. So that is, the digitalization is really at the heart of the process we've got to push forward. It optimizes economic activity and reduces the carbon footprints. It also allows exploiting sources of energy efficiently by optimizing production, transport, etc. And even as government policy creates enabling ecosystems for this transition to green and digital, it is important that private sectors, companies, are part of the solution as they represent the 2/3 of the world's energy consumption. So we are here to listen to you because you are the private actors, so you are key actors for that. The pandemic has shown that new paradigms are necessary to build the economy of tomorrow. We saw 2 decades of digital transformation happen in 2 months' time during the lockdown, which is very positive, of course. The pandemic is also proof that companies that invest in sustainability manage to find improved resilience, better operational performance, and business success when others struggle to find ways to reconfigure their model. And as economic recovery past the pandemic figures are in the mind of both public and corporate leaders, the OECD, based in Paris, in 2021 reminds us that returning to business as usual would mean missing a vital opportunity to tackle an underlying and interconnected environmental, economic, social, and relation challenges that predate COVID-19. So there is a need to design a long-term trajectory that integrates environmental consciousness into the decisions of companies and investors, and digital transformation could be a good place to start, especially in India. So I will stop there. I will just thank the IFKI and the TNP for organizing this, what we call in French, atelier, or I don't know what could be the other word, but it's really a place where it has to be concrete. We are here to listen to very specific stories, but not negative one, but positive one, I hope. And I'm very happy that they took this initiative. I thank our president for being there. And I wish you very good work for this coming hours. Thank you very much.
To the first panel discussion. I'm pleased to invite on stage Monsieur Mathieu Lebord, partner TNP, Monsieur Toby Lawson, Chief Executive Officer, and Chief Country Officer, Société Générale India, Mr. Nicolas Bokov, Chief Operation Officer, Suez India, and Mrs. Nidhi Somani, Trade Advisor, Business France India. Over to you, Mathieu.
Thank you, Bruno. Is it working well? Thank you, my dear panelists, to be with me this evening. This evening, it's an open discussion, so it's a workshop. I have some questions, but feel free to intervene in the room if you have a specific question to these gentlemen and ladies, sorry. Because today, the purpose of our meeting is to have some valuable insights about how companies are managing this green transition, and also, if they can, but not always, using digital as an enabler of digital transformation. So first of all, let me, maybe a short roundtable of ladies first. Just 1 minute about yourself and what you do today at Business France.
Am I audible? Yeah. So good evening, everybody. My name is Nidhi Somani. I'm a trade advisor at Business France. Most of you know what Business France is, but a quick introduction. So Business France is the French Trade and Investment Commission attached to the French Embassy in India. Our role is to help French companies to enter the Indian market by giving them some valuable advice and guidance. I am part of the Industries and Cleantech department, and my sectors of expertise are renewable energies, environment, building and architecture. I'm very happy to be as part of the panel today and look forward to a wonderful interaction with Mathieu and the rest of the panelists. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yes. Hello, my name is Nicolas Bokov. So I'm working at Suez. Suez is a water management and solid waste management company that has been in India for 40 years now. And my role is to support the operations and delivery of essential services, water services, and O&M of water supply and treatment plants in India, all over India. So we have around 40 locations, 40 municipal clients. And I have been posted in Bangalore in the past 4 years.
Hello. Oh. Hi. I'm Toby. I'm the CEO and Chief Country Officer for Société Générale. You may recognize or notice by my accent that I'm not French, that I'm Australian. Which last time we met was a little interesting because we had the... am I losing? Maybe this one. We had the French ambassador, Jean-Marc's colleague from Delhi, and he was berating the great country of Australia about the submarine deal. Little did he know that the CEO of the bank that was on the next panel was Australian. But I was politely mindful not to take him up on the topic. But I think given the current circumstances, I think the alliance between Australia and France is still incredibly strong. and continues to be. So, look, it's a pleasure to be here, and I've been in Mumbai now for 18 months, and we're really excited to participate in this event because we see fairly much now with the banking sector, with finance in general, a key responsibility to lead where we can in the relation of energy transition on green, but also in digitalization. And there are many topics we can discuss around finance, decentralized finance, but happy to be here. Thank you, Matthew, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Toby. So fortunately, there is no Russian on the panel tonight. So regarding strategic alliances, I think we do have a great strategic alliance between France and India. And that's why, Nidhi, I would like to have your point of view regarding all the efforts done at the country level, and then we will zoom on company level, to promote sustainability. What kind of projects are you working on? And please detail what you have.
Sure. Right. So, in continuation to what Mr. Consul General just told us, I might repeat a few ideas, but only for emphasis. So, we all know that the bilateral relations between France and India generally, and specifically in the sustainability domain, have never been better. France and India have always been in the forefront of taking sustainability initiatives. We have some examples like the Paris Agreement, the co-founding of the International Solar Alliance, as you rightly said, sir. We also have the more recent one is where India agreed to back France by launching a global initiative on the banning of single-use plastics. So the list just goes on. Also, the cooperation is not just limited to institutional cooperation, but we also seen some wonderful success stories on the commercial side. Here right next to me, I have Suez, who has been in India for more than 40 years now, and have been key in helping India to fight its wastewater treatment issues. Wonderful also JVs between Adani, Total, and so on and so forth. So the list just goes on. It is just the cooperation is building both on the institution side as well as the commercial side, and it's only getting better from here.
And on the field, so you have a lot of projects. Can you detail one or two of the projects or collaboration that you have on the field between India and France?
Yes, sure. So I'd love to talk to you about the French network who's working on the terrain here. So the French network is made up of the French Agency for Development. We have the Regional Economic Service Department of the Embassy, Business France, and of course the Indo-French Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Let me start with AFD first. So AFD has been in India since 2008 and has since then been working with the Indian authorities very closely to encourage green and inclusive growth. They have initiated jointly with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, more recently the Swachhata program, which is basically an initiative to identify the best startups in the country who are involved in the waste management domain. It's basically to reward them and to encourage them. Then we also have the CITES program, which is again a joint initiative of AFD, EU, and the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and their wing, the National Institute of Urban Affairs. The phase one of which concentrated on assisting cities. So 12 projects were identified, and the 12 projects were assisted in, to implement some sustainable urban infrastructure.
In green water, let's say green water, green water is not drinkable, but water which is sustainable in the fact how it's managed, or simply cheap, affordable for the population.
So a little bit of all this, obviously. So the first concern is to give access to water, to give equitable access to water to everyone. Definitely that's priority number one. And of course, it shall be affordable. So indeed, it has to be not cheap but affordable, and it has to be sustainable. So that's why it cannot be cheap. And and this is particularly key in India, where we have, it's not possible, but close to 24/7 and with predictability. So predictable water supply.
Is digital can help you to achieve these goals? First of all, reduce the cost, because the cost is always an issue, and the city council, they have also electors in front of them, and also improve customer experience, or?
Yeah, so digital plays a key role, and starting from some very basic activity, which is to know the infrastructure, to keep record of the assets, and especially for water supply, we have invisible assets, buried assets, which are not well documented. So digital here is a key enabler to know the asset, and once the asset is well known, then we can optimize the investment to improve the performance of this asset. So here again, digital plays a key role, because to optimize the performance of a complex asset, such as a distribution network, but it requires some complex softwares, so a lot of data and complex softwares. So here again, digital plays a key role for master planning and design of a performing infrastructure. And then later on in operation stage, again, digital is key for traceability of all the activities, the maintenance activities, the events, whatever it is, bursts or contaminations or whatever. So based on that, this database is very precious, and is very useful to analyze and to be able to take the right actions to improve the performance. So again, digital helps for traceability, for performance improvement. And then your last point was related to the end users. So this is another aspect of it. So the customer experience, what we call customer experience, which is nowadays enabled by digital, by smartphone, by all means of interaction, to make it easy for end users to interact with their water utility.
But today, is it about invoicing? Because when they receive the bill, there is a mistake.
Yeah, but even they receive a bill and they have any query, it's thanks to digital, they can have immediate answer. So it's much more efficient than calling somewhere and having no answer.
So it's about efficiency first.
Efficiency and facilitate, so improve, in fact, we say improve quality of life of customers as well. So not only by providing water, but also by facilitating the interaction with the utility.
Okay, thank you. So for green transformation, everybody agrees that need a major financing, and that's why banks are very useful. They are useful for other topics, but more especially for this, to achieve this goal. Toby, do you have green products in your portfolio to offer to your customers? Your customers, they are not consumers, but it's mid-sized to large multinational companies. What are they looking for in terms of green labeling?
So yes, banks still remain useful. I think it was Thomas Jefferson who said banks were more dangerous than standing armies. But and I think the idea now that banking plays a key role in being part of a positive impact solution. You know, the idea, but let's be honest, banks are still financial organizations that have shareholders are looking to monetize opportunities. And my two erstwhile colleagues, Nidhi and Nicola, would be aware of the need to have banks and financial intermediaries there to help facilitate what they want to achieve in terms of their goals, whether they be financial goals in terms of financing projects, but also in terms of advancing their ambitions, particularly in a country like India. So a role that we play at Societe Generale is very, very critical as a part of that framework to help deliver not only commercially successful goals, but also sustainably and positive impact goals. So for the bank, what do we put it down to between the, if we look at an ESG framework, we would say what is the E type product and what is the S. The S is sort of overlapping E, but when we think about green, and we're talking green, we're really looking at energy transition predominantly. So what are we looking at providing our clients with would be, you know, obviously clearly structured finance where it comes to energy transition, whether it's the development of new energy generation. So you would look at a classic project finance role of building new solar capacity. And we know in India has a massive capacity for solar. And the goal for the renewable energy target for Government of India is to achieve 500 gigawatt by 2030. I think they're at about 120. And the resource capacity of solar and wind in India is about 1,500 gigawatt. So it's huge capacity to develop. But the investment required annually to 2030 to get to the track for net zero by 2070 is about 160 billion USD of investment every year up to 2030 to get that achievable target. So there's a huge amount of investment and a huge amount of financing required. So we would look at, along with our banking colleagues in India, both at the public and private sector, would be looking at providing structured finance. So we would be typically looking at financing the construction, which is the high risk element of it. And then once those projects become cash flow generating, either we repay or those institutions would look at taking those debts into the capital markets so they can recycle and move forward. So the typical structured finance role would be us financing construction on the security of the cash flows that would come from a long-term project, and then either in order to ensure that they can continue to develop new projects would be maybe taking some of those refinancings into the bond market, into the capital markets. The other type of products would be things like letters of credit that could be green. We would look at sustainability-linked loans. We have one very interesting one now, which sustainability-linked loans crosses over between, let's say, water treatment as a KPI, improving water treatment, carbon sequestration, but also could be on other SDG goals like women empowerment, you know, in using money that is borrowed from us as a sustainability-linked loan to have KPIs that are available to be put towards empowering women through entrepreneurship and loans accordingly. So there's ways in which we can structure products to allow for that to happen. So you've got all of the normal financing products that you would have from a bank like ours, but also tailored and structured for, green outcomes.
Do you have targets or scorecard to measure the objective?
Yeah, for the bank globally, committed to doing 120 billion euro of financing in energy transition from 19 to 23. So that was a target, and it's already been achieved. It's about 150 billion to date that we've financed through green bonds and through loans, and we'll continue to advance that. We've also committed, obviously, to go out of thermal coal, so no longer financing that. Reduce our exposure to oil and gas sector by 10% by 2025. Understanding, of course, that there needs to be a transition. So as a bank, we're responsible not only to ensure that we reduce financing towards the fossil fuel, but at the same time helping our clients decarbonize to the extent. So there's that element of saying, look, you can't go from 0 to 100 immediately. And then, of course, as the Net Zero Banking Alliance, it's getting better, of course. You know, it's developing. The more and more of deals you've seen in green issuance of bonds, the cumulative issuance of bonds is about $1 trillion now. So there's a hell of a lot of data now. And to your point, what are the key concerns around greenwashing? It's false compliance of effectively making up green outcomes to justify investment. There's the plurality of definitions. So you have more than one definition of what is a green loan. So there's the consistency that has yet to really reach a point of global financing perspective, but also from an investment perspective, which is so critical.
Auditability,
Indeed.
Accountability. Okay, thanks. Back to you, Nidhi. Sorry. Today, the French companies entering India, you see a lot of them as a Business France advisor. Is sustainability high on their priority today? Tell me the truth, because I have some idea about that.
Sure. Well, we interact with companies at varying stages of their development project in India. So we have companies who are at stage 0, who are looking for pure knowledge of market opportunities and are looking to seeking potential partners in India. And there are some who come with a clear vision of setting up business there. So in the case of the latter, where we assist them in identifying the right structure of forming a company in India, we of course help them identify the best region to set up business. So normally what they would seek is information about the policies or the central and the state policies around sustainability that would govern their business activity. But the shift that we see now is that they are also interested to know about the energy mix of the regions they want to set up in. So I think that's
so you are pushing to, let's say, educate or raise awareness of French companies investing in India.
Yes, I'd say the push is from their side to find more and more about which regions are best, that fit in their sustainability goal also. Although they are, now entering India, so they, but yes, so that is also there. And then there are also these type of companies who are, like I said, looking for local partnerships. So there, normally on their list of criteria, they wouldn't want to find a company. Sustainability is not on the criteria of selection. That is where we push them to tie up with a company who is inclusive of the sustainability and will be a good ecological representation for them in India.
So it's part of the scorecard more or less now when you enter the market?
Yes, it has now found its place on the list of criteria, yes.
And regarding the awareness is a key question. According to you, what could be done more and now, let's say in the coming years, to boost this awareness for the French companies as you are an advisor?
So, like I said, it is important to be aware of the policies that are put in place by the Indian government, and to help when we advise the company to assist them in their strategy making. That has to figure on the top of the list, also because it can influence their business strategy for India in a great way.
And the bankers maybe also.
Indeed.
Yes, that is also a differentiation point to enter the Indian market, because what India is now looking for is clean and green technology. So the department that I'm part of, Clean Tech, our main objective is to identify very innovative companies providing greener and cleaner solutions to help Indian companies reach their sustainability goals.
Okay, thank you. And Nicolas, same for, as you are in contact with a lot of consumers, do you have any projects, and maybe digitally enabled, to educate or raise awareness of the consumer as well, because it starts by the consumer?
Yes. So as we do pursue to be open and to involve our consumers in the performing service. And one of the examples that I can highlight is not digital. It's in Kolkata, where we have involved the communities in the slums to, through women ambassadors, to teach and educate the population on the best practices of water consumption. The purpose being to save the water, to make a good use of the water. So this is a big project to educate consumers, and it's very successful, and it's a typical example of a non-digital solution to leading to more performance, because performance is also, like in the energy sector, the first objective is also to consume less energy, right? So here in the water supply, it's the same idea, is to optimize the water demand of each individual and each household.
And back to your business, do you use renewable energy today for your water treatment or management activity? And
Yes.
What is your objective regarding that?
So we have very ambitious objectives of reducing our footprint, which is extremely challenging, especially for water treatment and wastewater treatment, because we have increasing quantities, so there is no miracle. We cannot treat more and pump more drinking water by using no energy. So I would say there are some ways to be more efficient, but overall, if we want to have a very low footprint, the only way is to buy green energy, to buy sustainable energy. So that's one thing. And then in the other recycling and recovery activities, so waste water treatment, we do have projects, several projects actually, where we recover energy from the wastewater, so by doing methanization and so by producing biogas. And recently we have been also awarded a subsidy, a grant. I mean, not us, but we have a grant from the French government in Bangalore for the construction and operation of a bio-CNG treatment unit to produce fuel from a wastewater treatment plant to the urban buses. So fuel for the urban mobility, green fuel for urban mobility. So that's a typical example of what can be done at a municipal level to optimize the energy cycle and recover energy from wastewater.
And your clients are setting objectives in terms of, let's say, zero carbon neutral before 2030, 40?
It's
starting?
It's starting slowly, but it's starting, depending on which country we are talking about. Like in Australia, for instance, it's very strong, but in India, it's not the priority today. But for sure, it will be very soon on the agenda, especially for the wastewater treatment and solid waste management.
For Société Générale, same, because you have you are using major data centers, and as your digital activity is growing, how do you
I was thinking of Nicola's comment. It's about the circular economy. Really, is taking one particular need. You can greenify that, but what's the impact in terms of less energy use, energy transference, creating new energy? So from our client base, particularly, the large corporates are, very serious about achieving not only, decarbonization, let's say in the steel industry, but across the whole supply chain, shipping, transport, chemicals, cement, any of these sectors that large corporates are dealing with both in India and around the world are very much committed to achieving targets, but they're in transition. They're very reliant upon energy, energy is still predominantly driven by fossil fuel in India, will continue to be, because even if we can see a huge increase in renewable, and I think the target is to get it to 45% by, I think, of the mix by 2030, if I'm correct. That's on top of increased energy demand. So India will increase its use of fossil fuels over the coming years. It won't be reducing them, even with the uptake of renewable, just because the economy is in high growth, heavy transition, still very much reliant upon fossil fuel. So we're trying to facilitate wherever we can, not only the opportunity of financing new energy, but also helping companies redefine their business models to reduce their carbon footprint through various means. And Nicola's example clearly is an obvious one of how companies can take their particular industry and try to create new opportunities out of it. So it's not purely about reducing energy output, it's redefining energy and redefining a use case.
Yeah, use cases, but for example, the COVID situation, the 2 years that we had on COVID, have you noticed a major change in terms of business model? The most significant one is the work from home. So this kind of stuff can help you to achieve the goals, the ambitious goals? Changing the business model itself?
All business models have been completely disrupted, let's be honest, over the last 2 years. So in fact, never waste a crisis. The opportunity has now presented itself for us to adapt our business model, at least from a banking perspective, not just our clients, but ourselves, in terms of what footprint we put in the city, in terms of, because if you look at the work from home scenario, if you could do the maths, the percentage of workforce not coming in on public transport, reduce the need, the footprint that they burn in terms of either driving a car or catching the train, then the energy of the building to service the air conditioning, et cetera, et cetera. So even within our very small presence, let's be honest, in India, we can measure a positive impact in terms of a new model of working, and that I think that's applicable to many of the service sectors, less so for manufacturing and less so for others. So, but in any case, what you mentioned about the pandemic has really flipped business models all around. So I suspect we're still in transition. I suspect we're still going to try to get over this pandemic and try to see what is actually optimal. And part of it will be a return to work to try to recalibrate, and then I think we'll adapt the model towards more flexible working arrangements, which will have a positive impact not only on social outcomes, let's be honest, but also in terms of environment.
Well, it can go far, because if you look at the Société Générale in the headquarters in La Défense in Paris, you have 3 beautiful towers right now. One may be enough, so it's with the new business models.
I'm sure we can get Suez to maybe take one.
Suez is next door.
I'm afraid ours is getting too big too.
So yes, repurposing office space is an interesting topic, but I'm sure we have plenty of other things to discuss. But yes, it's certainly a topic.
Just maybe last round of question, and of course, if anyone in the room wants to ask question to this panelist, please feel free. But my last question is about the objective of the Indian government to reach carbon neutrality by 2070. The last COP said 2050. Are you optimistic about reaching that objective, or do you think it can come earlier or never? Maybe Nidhi? Just are you optimistic?
I'd say yes. It's good to have ambitious targets, and we have India has kind of proved it. That it was one of the few countries that was very close to the targets that set for themselves, and we've ourselves seen the renewable energy targets being surpassed as well. So yes, ambitious is good, and I have a positive feeling about this.
Even though that by 2040, it is estimated that the energy consumption will be multiplied by 4, something like that?
Yes, but simultaneously we also have some interesting policies coming out, like the green hydrogen, for example, so which is the buzzword for France, India, and everybody across the world. So while we know that with urbanization the consumption is going to rise manifold, we also have some interesting provisions that are being put into place, and green hydrogen being one of them, which is going to support this objective. Yes.
Nicolas?
Yeah, I'm also quite optimistic because of the pressure that will increase around that, and also the amazing creativity and that is around us in India. So many players and so many new ideas, startups, and also corporates coming up with a lot of solutions and new approaches. So I'm quite optimistic that India will achieve the target. And as far as I know, the progress is quite good currently.
Yes, I found a very old article in the French newspaper Le Monde. It was written in 1980. And they said that in 1980, India, 650 million people, they will be never, when they will reach 1 billion people, they will be able to feed the population. And the article was terribly pessimistic about India. 40 years after, you see the difference.
No, I think you underestimate India at your peril. That article clearly shows its age, quite frankly. I'm ambitious because of attitude. India has never been one that has been slow to talk about and participate in the renewable space and the need. So I don't think there's ever been any denial. But India is practical. It's an economy on the growth, and I think we have to be reasonable to allow India to develop its targets. I think clearly one of the big advantages is the resource. I mentioned this. The resource for solar and wind is huge. The capacity to invest in solar and wind in India is enormous, and the cost is low on a global relative basis. So yes, it's a huge amount of investment. Yes, it's incredibly ambitious, but it is achievable because it's economic. The economics add up. That's notwithstanding the challenges of delivery around land acquisition and the many myriad of issues. But you have a government that's committed. You have the right attitude, and now you have the private sector and business starting to commit and drive through. And I expect that while we've got 150 gigs now of power installed for the 500 target, I think in the last year alone, there was 21, 22 gigs. So if you start looking at the acceleration, I think it's only going to get quicker. So I think those targets are achievable. But to your point, the amount of energy required is enormous for this economy. So the challenge will be there for the next 20 years.
Great. Any questions to the panel? Oh, I see a hand. Maybe.
Good evening, sir. I'm Pramod Shah, corporate consultant and a practicing company secretary. So I would like to have your views on how many countries globally are trying to adopt this model what you have been describing, sir. Green model, yeah.
In terms of renewable energy transition, sir?
No, how many countries in the world are trying to adopt,
I think pretty much all, I would say. I wouldn't hazard a guess at a specific number, to be unfair of me to say. But given our network, our global network as a bank, I can assure you that in every domicile that we operate, we're promoting and financing renewable projects. And we are pretty much located in just about every country in the world, with a few exceptions. And I can assure you that it's something we are promoting and seeing response, not only from our clients, but also from government.
Thank you.
Question?
Good evening. This is Pulak Prakash from Bureau Veritas. As Bureau Veritas, we have seen how sustainability discussions have been evolving over the last 1 year. we do offer a lot of different sustainability services. But to the panel, what I wanted to understand, the concept of greenwashing is a very relevant discussion on this subject. Because while there are commitments on sustainability goals, and they need not necessarily just be on carbon, there's a whole set of sustainability on the social side, on the governance side. But it's not just in India, but even globally for that reason, there are not very clear set rules on where the boundary conditions are, what scope is to be included and what's to be excluded. So the greenwashing, I think, from our side, is a very relevant subject. And I just wanted to hear from the panel on how are they managing the greenwashing side, because the KPIs can actually look very different from what the realities are.
I think it's if you look at it from a UN perspective, the positive impact initiatives that have been the principles, if you will, of green financing have been established at the UN level. And there is coordination in terms of the principles around financing and around defining what it is green. But your point's a fair one, because when you talk about positive impact, you're talking not just about environmental, but you're talking about social. And social is often difficult to define. What's the social benefit in certain projects, and how do you measure that? And of course, that leads to the potential of false compliance, that leads to the potential of greenwashing as the expression. So the key is really about ensuring that the collaboration at the multilateral level becomes coordinated. So whether it's through UN, whether it's through a banking alliance, whether it's through building that taxonomy. Let's say, for instance, we joined the Hydrogen Council, and all of that work being done to create the framework is happening, particularly when it comes to energy and particularly when it comes to financing. But it doesn't answer to everything, as you quite rightly point out. So the challenge, of course, is to continue to build upon the experience, ensure that those standards can become global and that everyone can benchmark, because it's not just about those who are participating in these projects, but it's also the investors. So an investor who's looking at an ETF that says, right, this is a green ETF because we only invest in XYZ companies, and partly what is the measurement of an XYZ company? Is it because they don't invest in something or they do something which is positive or negative? So it's very, very complex, but I think more and more what we've seen, and I mentioned to you the amount of bond issuance in green that's just cumulatively growing up over $1 trillion since 2020, or from 13 to 20. So it's fairly aggressive growth in the amount of debt financing in which is green. I think all that data, all of that experience, all of that work is now building consistency in the framework. And so you can be confident to suggest in probably core elements, particularly in relation to green financing, that you can be confident about the validity. But where you're talking about SDGs that are more socially based, I think there is a challenge still to work on those to get some consistency.
Yes, if I can add on that, sir, your point is very valid, and greenwashing is obviously a pitfall, and is obviously something that will occur, and that has to be regulated somehow. But at this stage is probably unavoidable, all this topic. So yes, it's, I feel...
certainly a lot of digital tools.
Thank you.
I think are we on time, Bruno? Yes? More question if you, or for the second table maybe, we keep some question? Thank you very much. Small break, or 5 minutes break, coffee break, and then second round table.
source of creation because of our greediness. We all want to live in this world, but we buy the hand that feeds us. Let's keep it as a precious pearl. And I realize how great it is to be alive. There's so much beauty right before my eyes.
Hello? Yeah. Good evening. I'm pleased to introduce you the second panel, which will be moderated by Mr. Govindraj Etiraj, journalist and founder editor in The Spend. Mr. Ganesh Murugayan, MD, Head of Investment and Banking, Strategic Coverage, BNP Paribas. Mr. José Ignacio Sanz Saiz, Country Chair, India, and Vice President, Gas, Renewable and Power, Total Energies. Monsieur Benoît Ranini, President and Co-founder, TNP. So please request you to take your seat. The second panel starts immediately.
Thank you very much, Bruno, for inviting me here. Our topic for the panel discussion is Global Green Transition and India Embracing Digital Skills and Innovation. So the emphasis for this panel is embracing digital skills and innovation. Just a 1-minute backdrop. I know we're already running behind on time, so I'm going to hand over to our panelists very quickly. I think COVID-19, as everyone knows, has accelerated digital transformation and digital adoption or adaption faster than anyone could imagine. And maybe what would have happened in a decade has really happened in 18 months to 2 years. Equally, I think the big and even seismic changes that we've seen on the geopolitical front in the last 1 month will accelerate the political and business response faster than ever. And what may have taken a decade or even more, perhaps will happen now in months, years, if not even months, because there is really no choice. And that's the power of geopolitical or political change when it happens, however brutally it happens. So I think that could be that in some ways is the starting point for our discussion. What I'm going to do is request all our 4 panelists to speak for about 4 or 5 minutes on how they see this theme on embracing digital skills and innovation from their vantage point, either as a banker, as an energy company, or as a consulting company, post which we'll have a short conversation into which I hope you will contribute either questions or comments. So on that note, let me begin with Ganeshan. And I'm not introducing or anything, but Ganeshan, you may say a few words about yourself and then launch into the topic. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Govind, and pleased to be part of this panel. So I'm Ganeshan. I head corporate banking and investment banking at BNP Paribas in India. BNP Paribas is a bank which is committed to the energy transition, and as we go along the panel, we can talk through various instances that we have done it. Yeah, is that clear? Yeah, thank you. So before I get into the innovation part of the transition, just a quick background. So I think as we step back and think about green transition, clearly it is something that every country has now imbibed in the journey. So everyone has their net zero goals. And as you think about it in terms of transition, each and every company has to kind of imbibe the transition in their own goals. So as a banker, we deal with various corporates. So if you look at the corporates, the top 100 corporates in India, for example, the last we kind of analyzed, almost 60 of them have laid out specific net zero targets. Some is 2025, some is 2030, some is later, but everyone has a net zero target. So the transition is a journey that every corporate has to go through. And in a way, it's not just limited to corporates that we as a bank would interact with, it is across sectors. So if you think about it more broadly, for example, agriculture is the second largest greenhouse emission for India. So, and there is a huge transition that needs to happen in agriculture if we need to get to the net zero target. There is a huge revolution happening in terms of migration to cities because we are an economy which is going to have the demographic dividend, and there are going to be a lot of cities. So how do we make the cities, the buildings and everything smart and green? So I think green is something which, which is there for corporates. It's there in agriculture sector. It's there in, a lot of sector that needs to come in. Now, in terms of how innovation can help, so if you look at the green transition, there is of course renewable energy, there is hydrogen, there is carbon transition. So there are a lot of initiatives, and there's a lot of technology which needs to come in. I think if we take the example of renewables, which I think Jose is an expert on, so I will not say much, but if we look at renewable, what has India done? So when we started the renewable journey, probably 10, 15 years back, the power tariffs from solar were as high as 12 rupees or 12 rupees plus. And then I think everyone was saying there is a cost to green transition because the cost of power from solar or wind was higher than coal-fired. I think today, due to variety of things which the government has done, which the industry has done, which the financing community has done, the cost of solar is today lower than the cost of coal. So I think the perspective has changed from being the transition being a cost to now transition being a way of life. And I think that is something which will come through in every industry, whether you take steel, which today is one, let's say, one of the sectors where you're using a lot of coal, etc., has to transition. It can be cement, it can be auto. So that transition will occur across, and this innovation will come up. Now, where we as a bank come in is we are the enablers. So we are providing a lot of banking solutions towards this green transition. So whether it is green bond, whether it is sustainable loans, sustainable bonds, there is a sustainable supply chain. So there's a lot of tech and innovation that needs to come in. For example, we have a product which is a sustainable deposit, and that is completely electronic end to end. So a corporate can just come in online and have a deposit. We have a sustainable supply chain solution. So you're a large corporate, you're procuring from various small corporates. So how do you put in a system and a process by which you can make sure that each of your supplier is meeting the green transition goals. So I think we are helping our corporates through the journey. And at BNP Paribas globally, this is a key initiative, and we have in fact formed a group which is a low carbon transition group. And this group of individuals globally will make sure that the best technology that is used anywhere globally is available to all our clients. So that's what we are focusing on, saying that how do we bring the technology from that is being used globally to India. So I would say that is where global organization like ours can really help our corporates in the green transition.
So any illustration of that when you say bringing in innovation or technology from the system into, let's say, a country like India?
Yeah, so if you look at Europe, which is our home market, we recently did a transaction for a company called Ionity, which is a battery charging solution with presence in more than 40 countries globally, and we raised financing for them. So I think that is something that now we are helping a lot of the Indian clients to look at similar solution and raise financing for them. And the sustainable supply chain solution that I told you is something that we have implemented for some of our multinational clients, and that is a solution which was formulated in Singapore for one of our clients, and then we have then used that technology for a lot of the clients in India. So I think it is transporting the learnings and the best practice in terms of those technologies to India.
Okay, thank you. Jose?
Hello, good evening everybody, and first of all, happy Holi and happy celebration tomorrow. My name is José Ignacio Sanz. As I'm sure you can see, my accent is not French either. I'm Spanish, but I'm, yes, like you, non-French, working for a French company. I'm the country chair of Total Energies. And the topic today is very important, starting by the green transition that for a company like ours, is the green transformation. Because the Consul General said it before, we have today too many issues, too many flash news, another wave of COVID, the problems in Europe, but there is an underlying serious issue, which is climate change. And for a company like ours, it is at the core of our activity. We are here to supply energy, and like the water for our colleagues from Suez, this energy has to be available, has to be affordable, has to be sustainable. Sumit mentioned it, a few years ago we were big oil and gas. Today we are a broad energy company. I'm sure that if you have gone to the airport of New Delhi, even at the airport in Mumbai, you can see a lot of advertisement saying energy is reinventing itself and we are changing. We are changing, in fact. We're no longer Total, we are Total Energies. And we have a big challenge. We have made a commitment to be net zero together with society by 2050. And for a company like ours, it's not easy. We really need to transform ourselves. We are going to work mainly in gas, natural gas, hydrogen, biogas, low carbon renewable gas. We are working already in renewables a lot, and we're investing a lot of money. We're going to work, we need to continue working in oil, and we are usually accused by the press of still doing oil. Yes, but the world needs oil, and we are seeing that these days, and with the current prices, we still need some oil. What we're doing is that we're ensuring that all our oil projects are with low carbon oil, and that every new project that we sanction is going to reduce the energy intensity. For every oil project, we have this mantra, which is for emissions, avoid, and that is done at the drawing board. Minimize in the operation, and then either capture or compensate for those emissions that cannot be eliminated or mitigated. And we're going to work as well a lot on carbon sinks, carbon capture, nature-based solutions. We have a department for planting trees now. And some people may say that it's greenwashing. I can tell you, it's serious, and we're taking it very, very seriously. And we have already one massive project in Africa. We're going to work in Papua as well. Because our aim is to give more energy. We are a company and we need to grow. We need to give more energy, sustainable energy to the customers and reduce our emissions. In this regard, our situation is not so different from the one in India. And I fully agree with what you were saying before about the upcoming energy demand in India. India's economy is today the largest, is the one with the highest growth worldwide. India's population is growing, and in 3, 4, 5 years' time is going to be the most populated country in the world. The needs of energy of India with these two elements are going to be huge, staggering. And today, the primary energy matrix is very much going towards fossil fuels, coal, and oil. So India needs to change, and India needs to change significantly. It is clear that because of the size and the potential that is going to come, India is a key international player. And we only need to listen to Mr. John Kerry, the climate czar of the Biden administration. In every public speech he makes, he talks about India and the importance of India in the world and the need for everybody to bring investment to India. And what I see as well is that India is taking the responsibilities very seriously. So it's a key international player, but what I see is that it's a responsible international player. Personally, I was pleased by the announcement that they made in the COP26 in Glasgow of being net zero by 2070, and people were disappointed by the date. I am optimistic, and I answering a question issued to the previous panel, but I think that is as well a more realistic. Everybody wanted 2050, 2050. We need to face reality as well. India has a huge task ahead, but India is doing what I see, the right thing. And India is bringing all its energy to target and to tackle this issue. A few years ago, India launched the National Mission for Renewables, and today India is a leading country in renewables. India is launching now the national mission on hydrogen, the latest hydrogen policies, and I have no doubt that India is going to become a very significant country for green hydrogen. And in all this transformation of the country, because it's going to be a transformation of the country, transformation of the companies that are operating, innovation and digital are going to be crucial. But I want to stop for a moment in innovation, not go straight to digital, because innovation goes beyond digital. For innovation, we all have in mind technical innovation. Where you were mentioning before, the cost of solar panels being dramatically reduced. There's a lot of work being done for hydrogen now, trying to bring the cost down. There is a target, $1 per 1 kilo in 1 decade. And I'm sure that is going to be reached. We as a species are fantastic at innovating. But there needs to be another innovation, not only technical innovation. I think that companies and actors in this sector need to start acting in a different way. In our case, we have changed our organization. We have put all our technical people all over the world together under one single branch. Before, they were working for refining plants, they were working for exploration and production projects, for marketing, they were doing research and development. We have put every technical person together under one single branch, so there's sort of technical cross-fertilization. We need to be innovative and we need to think out of the box. We need to be innovative in the way in which we act, and I think that our presence in India now is reflective of this innovation. We had been in India for 30 years, since 1993, and we really had never grown a lot, let's face it. I think that we didn't know how to work in India. We have tried a different business model now in India. We have partnered with a local player, with the Adani Group, and you know, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. I think that nobody better than Indian people knows how to do business in India. We have several joint ventures now on natural gas and on renewables. They're working pretty well. Day-to-day activities are managed by the local employees. We didn't come with an army of European, French, or Spanish engineers. I'm the whole team. But we can give a lot of technical support. We can give financial support. So I think that this innovation is working. So maybe I can leave digital for not to extend myself too much now.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Benoit.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Benoit Ranini. I'm the president of TNP. So TNP is a French and European company dedicated to the design and the management of a huge transformation program. We work especially on 3 domains. The first is the transformation of the value chain of the company, to increase the top line, to reduce the cost, to improve the talent development. The second domain is around the transformation, around the new regulation, the regulation around financial regulation, data privacy, and now taxonomy and green transition. And the last domain of our transformation skills is about digital IT data. And the idea is to help our client to optimize IT department, optimize IT resources to improve the business value. And we do that especially on 3 geographical zones: Europe, Western Europe, Africa, in Asia, especially in India. About green transition, we talk about green transition, but also for us it's very important to work on the improvement of the biodiversity and the reduction of the consumption of key resources of the earth. So green transition is a key element, but it's important to add also the biodiversity and the limitation of the consumption of the key resource. About that, what TNP do? We have all the group our own internal plan to improve our carbon footprint, to reduce our electrical consumption. But frankly, the carbon footprint of TNP is very low. Our major impact is to help our clients to reduce the electricity consumption and to improve the footprint carbon footprint impact. To do that, we have 3 levers. The first is the definition of starting point. Because we talk about green washing, and the reality is today, we have a lot of communications. Every chairman, every group wish to be carbon neutral before 2030, before 2040. Is a lot of communication. In the reality, on the floor, on zone, the real project which will impact deeply the electricity consumption or the carbon impact is always limited. And it's the reason why for us, the important thing is to measure what is today the real electricity consumption of steel maker, of a bank, of an insurance company, or retailer, and to design and define also its real carbon footprint. Because today we have few real data, and it's important to collect it. For that, the data is important, the Internet of Things is also important, and the artificial intelligence is also important because it's a huge number of data. So the second after these measurements, the second dimension is to design with the top management a realistic transformation program with quick wins to reduce electricity consumption, to reduce the carbon footprint. And the reality is we need a lot of money. The finance is a key element in the equation. And today, for a top management, it's complicated to find the right balance between profitability and green transition. It's the reason why it's not easy, because when, for example, when you analyze the steel industry, when you produce 1 ton of steel, you produce 1.5 tons of carbon dioxide. And to avoid that, you have to change all your production chain. The minimum investment is 1 billion euro by plant. So it's a very, very huge investment. So it's not easy, and you need to have a long time. The third dimension, and we help top management to design that, is to redesign the business model. We will not capture the green transition stakes just limiting the electricity consumption. We have to reinvent some business model. You have a good example in the automotive sector. We move from thermal car to electrical vehicle. In this industry is changing drastically all its business model. You are changing the product, you are changing the distribution network, you are changing the price model. So it's a complete reinvention of the business model. But today, the problem of that is when you analyze the electrical vehicle to run, it's necessary to have a very deep distribution network, and this deep distribution network is a very important investment and a long time period. And moreover, you have a problem of price. An electrical vehicle, an equivalent vehicle between thermal vehicle and electrical vehicles, the different price. So, in conclusion, our positioning is to help the top management of the major group of our major clients to design this difficult way, which has to combine real green transition, real biodiversity impact, and real financial perspective, and we need time because it's very important to take the good choice and to have the good way to avoid to destroy employment or to develop strong investment in a false good idea.
Okay. Can I come back on the point that you just made? So in the case of electric vehicles, the push in some ways came from outside. A Tesla came up and Elon Musk says he wants to change the world, and all automotive companies had no choice but to respond. But when you take traditional industries like steel, energy, cement, how do you see that motivation coming for that level of change?
For this industry, in fact, is not you don't have the choice. Because the regulation will impact all this industry. If a steelmaker don't produce green steel in 2025, it will be impossible for it to sell in Europe. So, but in front of that, you have an economic problems because today you don't have green steel.
Lack of sufficient innovation in this, say, for example, in steel making? Is it the availability of financing?
I think at the technical point of view, we have in 90% of cases the solution. Is essentially, in my point of view, a problem of finance and payback.
Okay. Jose?
So, what I think is that, answering your question, there are many, many facets to this issue, but as Benoit said, there is just no alternative. The problem that we're facing with climate change is significant, and everybody needs to act. So, of course, there's going to be many, many forces that are going to oblige companies to do that. Regulation in Europe is very strong and is leading the way. But in other places where regulation is not so strict, you have the funding issue. At the end of the day, it's going to be as well acceptability by the consumer. And there are places like in India, extremely price sensitive, where this level is not there yet. In other countries, like in Europe, people, now we have a very complex situation with high rising inflation, but people had proved that they were ready to pay a bit more to get clean, green products. So I think that there is no way. I think that in many ways, as you were saying, the technical solution is there. We're not far away from the technical solution. It's a matter of being innovative, of reducing costs, maybe by doing things in a different way and getting funding.
Yeah, so I have a slightly different perspective to add. So, you know, I believe this is one of the revolutions. So if you go back in history, you know, you had the agriculture revolution, you had the industrial revolution, you had the IT or digital revolution. And in each of those revolutions, I think there was always a question of, you know, I'm kind of doing something in a very different way, or I have to make a significant investment in IT infrastructure, and, you know, what will happen to me, should I make the investment? But I think if you kind of look back, now each of those companies have, you know, been better, you know, the employees have been better off by making that transition. So I think if you look at now this green transition, it is the next revolution that, you know, every company has to go through and every individual has to go through. So I think, you know, it is, as everyone said, it is inevitable. And I think the more you look at it as a cost, I think it, you know, you would not reach at the right solution. I think, you know, and the way a lot of companies are looking at it is, you know, we do need to reach a certain target, and then, you know, how do we make it best? Now, you know, of course, there will be regulation, as Benoit said, which will force some of you to make that transition. It will probably be all better off.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, there is one more thing that we have not mentioned, but is as well the employees. the employees who are working for the company, and they are a huge force. And in our case, that force is twofold. On the one hand, our employees, my colleagues, they want to do things right. And we have families, and we go and we talk to our teenage sons and daughters, and you know, they accuse us of killing the world. And these are conversations that me and my colleagues, we've had with our families. And there is a force behind to do things the right way. There is something else, which is in order to attract talent. And today, you know, a few years ago, the old Total was the company where every young engineer in France wanted to work. Because technically, the company is doing amazing things. But today, the young French engineers, they don't want to work for Total. They would never work for Total. They are beginning to come, and they are being attracted by Total Energies. And in our gas, renewables, and power department, we have a lot of young people who are very proud because they feel that they are doing something meaningful. And that is a force that we cannot forget.
Yes, and I will add that for the heavy industry, like the steelmaker, another stake, it's because when you design the real carbon footprint of a company, you have to analyze don't analyze just the border of the group. You have to analyze the suppliers. You have to analyze the distribution. And for these heavy companies, heavy industry companies, one of the major problems is the electricity, because the consumption of the steel maker, of the cement maker is very huge. And in the location where you have the facilities, you don't have 100% of green energy. So you have also, and this green energy, the cost of this green energy is not cheap. So you have, first of all,
this context, like globally as well as in India. And I'm going to come to you as well on the same thing. Benoit, first you.
The idea of sufficient history in terms of data, in terms of solution, to be sure that the best way will be A against B. So it's always the same problem with artificial intelligence. We need history, we need a lot of data, and we need relevant data. But today we have a lot of opportunities in different industries to work on the electricity consumption of the I don't know, automaker or a financial institution, on working on the limitation of the electricity consumption of the real estate, for example. And the COVID, because we hope that the COVID crisis is probably finished, or in few months. Hopefully. And this crisis has also a very strong impact on the organization of the work, because we have understand that we can work on a remote base. And clearly, if we work on a remote base, you don't take your car, you don't use the building. So in terms of real estate impact and in terms of carbon emission with your car, you can divide by 2. You can divide by 2 the square meter of your office, and you can divide by 2 the emission of
India. And I'm very much aware that I'll be very brief. I'll give some examples of some of the companies that we are actually, these are real life examples. We have one company, Adani Total Gas. It's a city gas distribution company. We're selling gas to end users, to houses, apartments. The impact of smart meters. For instance, the possibility of having a smart meter that can give you trends of consumption, and you can do targeted offers to improve the situation of the customer. You can do preventive maintenance. You can even do some maintenance remotely. We are proposing to our customers to go we say from customer care to customer delight. A complete paperless relationship with the company. You can enroll digitally. You will get your bills digitally. You can pay digitally. You can. So that's one example for a company that is going to end users. But another company, Adani Green Energy, which is the largest solar promoter in the world and is a huge company, selling not to end users but to discoms in several states. The use of artificial intelligence to do preventive maintenance, to do real-time.
You know, it can be given back to the bondholders as kind of periodic reporting. So I think we use obviously technology because here you're talking of, you know, loans which are sub, you know, 1 lakh, and you know, this was a 500 million issuance. So you can think of the number of loans that.
So it's called sustainable bond because.
It's called sustainable bond because of the end use.
Okay.
If you know Shriram Transport, it is a NBFC,
truck financing,
but it's a truck financing company. So these are loans given to first-time borrowers. So i.e., you know, a person who probably, you know, could not afford a truck. So it's, you know, the criteria were defined. So it's first time, and it is enhancing the livelihood of the entire family. So I think there were defined criteria on who's eligible, and that kind of qualifies. So that is, you know, so that's where we use technology, and, you know, across a lot of the products that we do that. The second is use of technology for our own, you know, operational improvements, etc. For example, you know, I think everyone knows, so if you try doing any trade finance in India, you know, there are probably hundreds of documents, you know, just for even a 1 million loan. So I think over the past 2 years, and of course COVID, you know, hastened that transition. You know, we now have a product where, you know, the completely a trade is end-to-end digital. So you don't need even one paper to do the transaction. So that is
no stamp paper, no stamp paper, franking.
No. So all that is e-franking, etc. So there is a solution. So of course, you know, it cuts down the paper, it cuts down a lot of things. So, but we are working on those digital solutions.
Okay.
And I think it's the same case in India, but digital data and technology, it's also levers to imagine a new type of business model. And because to increase or to accelerate the green transition and the footprint carbon impact, you have to increase the density of use. The density of use, the good example is the car. 10 years ago, everybody will have a car. And this car will stay in your parking or in the street 95% of the time. Today, the idea is you share your car. You have a system like, I don't know if it exists in India, but BlaBlaCar. It's a sharing system. And to do that, technology, platform, data is necessary. The second type of evolution of business model is the second life. When you buy, I don't know, a watch, or you buy, I don't know, shoes, after 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, so you think it's the time to change. And this watch or these shoes stay in your I don't know, in your room or in your. The idea is to reinvent a second life, to reuse the product, to avoid to consume new resources. And in order to develop this second life business, you have a lot of technology, you have a lot of data, you have a lot of digital dimensions, because it's important to analyze what is the price of the product, who will be interested by this product, what is the new logistic, how do we reship the product to have a good quality, how do we follow the the maintenance of this product to be sure that it's at the right price. So you have a lot of dimensions, but at the beginning of the way, the important thing is to say we have to change, but not a company, it's the people change. It's the change management, a global change management. We have to change. Everybody have to change in our every time use.
Right. Okay. Questions or comments? Anyone? Yeah. Go ahead.
Benoit, to your point about change, individual change, do you think there's two elements to it? Is it push and pull, right? Carrot and stick. With the recent rise in inflation and cost pressures, it can force change in habit due to pricing. So you're priced out of things, you have to adapt, you may recycle, you may extend the life of an asset, etc., etc. But also I think it comes down to enforcement a little bit by taxation potentially, or charging, or making that price elevated such that it forces change of behavior. Do you see that this recent change in supply chain dynamics and higher cost as structural being ultimately potentially beneficial? We always talk about inflation being negative, but to some extent, does it actually serve a purpose of forcing change in behavior?
In fact, for example, the current increasing of the supply chain is an interesting discussion. Why the logistic cost has increased dramatically their price since, I don't know, 12 months. Clearly, the COVID crisis has its impact. But you have another problem, it's the huge boom of the e-commerce. And this e-commerce boom is essentially based on the Chinese behaviors. The interesting thing is, for example, when you analyze the luxury industry. Chinese represent 50% of the luxury industry today in terms of consumptions, in terms of revenue. In some time, a Chinese girl, which to have a product with a strong sustainability, with a strong respect of the green constraints, but at the same time, she wish his product tomorrow. This product is at 90% of cases produced in France or in Italy. To ship a product from Italy or from France to China, to Hong Kong or to Shanghai, it's several tons of carbon by ship. So we are in fact, so the good question is it necessary to have your new watch or new product tomorrow? You can wait 1 week or 2 weeks. So it's the reason why I talk about change management and population change management. We can have in some time green society and a society which need product now or new product now. It's a problem of the Amazon impact. Amazon has demonstrated to everybody that we can deliver a product for tomorrow. But when you analyze really your need, in 90% of cases, you can stay 5 days, 2 weeks. But it's a normal practice to deliver a new product tomorrow. Amazon Premium. But it's a bullshit. It's a bullshit. We don't have this need. So the reality is to back to the real needs of the populations, the real needs of the companies, and after this redesign of your needs and requests, rethink the business model, rethink the supply chain, rethink the logistics, rethink the sourcing, to combine the right price with the right quality and the right green impact. But at the beginning of the journey, it's the client, the client is always the key, the king. The client is the king. So we have to work closely with the client, and the client is you. And is the starting point.
So I'm assuming Amazon is not your client. So any other, yeah, go ahead. Last question, most likely, or maybe one more. We're running out of time. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just make it quick.
Yep.
My name is Hemant. I come from a firm called ASC. We're an Indo-Japanese consulting firm. I think one of the questions which largely I am looking at, or in terms of getting an answer, is as the transition happens from the, from where companies move from a brown sector towards the green a bit, and I'm sorry I'm dressed in brown, but that by no means is an indication of fact of how passionate I am about ESG. As the companies move, who would at the end of the day end up owning all these harmful assets? Because if I have to divest and sell it off to somebody else will own it. Then at the end of the day, who are we looking at in terms of owning those harmful assets together?
Okay. Any more questions? Then we can take everything together. Yeah, go ahead.
So one question that's on my mind is the green transition and the digital innovation have to go hand in hand. And this requirement over the next few years is going to get more prominent, because after some low fruits would have been sorted out from a green transition perspective, the next set of actions that would require a lot set of data, and thereby we will see a lot of digital requirements on the data and innovation. So how are companies preparing for that set of data and digital? Because it may take even an existing company to a very different level on data and digital handling. So just wanted to hear how is that being managed in large organizations.
Okay, behind you.
This question is to Mr. Ganesan. So with the increase in digitization, do you think that cyber securities need to be tightened, especially to avoid misuse and the fraud, especially in the banking sector, sir? Your comments, sir.
Okay, yes. Last question.
We talked about various things, and we talked about the 3 R's: reduce, and recycle. The last part, recycle, when you're changing the entire thing towards green, especially in the 3 core sectors we have talked about: energy, steel, cement. How are you going to, what are the strategies of the corporate world for this, on this aspect, especially on the recycling aspect? Reduce is fine, recycling aspect.
Got
Thanks.
it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, as we are really short of time, I'm going to ask all of you to respond to the questions if you want to, and also use this to give a 30-second sum up. But in that sum up, I think we spoke about it earlier. What's the one innovation that really, in your mind, manifests the response to this whole challenge that we're facing in terms of green transition, whether it's using digital skills or embracing digital skills or creating better responses? So responses to the question and the one innovation point that is top of your mind.
Yeah. So so maybe answering to your question on on what happens to the old asset. So look, I think it's not a straightforward one answer. Yes, there are going to be what we call standard assets, right? So there are some industries which will no longer work. One example is potentially shale gas, where just the the environmental impact of removing shale gas is so punitive that there is no alternative. So I think you have to find new sources of energy and possibly stop using that. But everything will not be standard. So when you talk about steel, when you talk about cement, you're changing the way in which steel is produced. So instead of burning coking coal instead of using, you're going to use renewable energy to produce steel. But that technology, is still evolving. So I think it'll take some time. But I think the way in which you produce will change. But, the assets by themselves, everything will not be standard. So I think it will be an evolution. So your question on cyber security, of course, it is the most important element, not linked to the green transition, but just the fact that, we are doing everything so digitally, cyber security is going to be important. I think for India, I can say that, the regulator has taken note of that. In fact, each of us who are, either in the boards of the banks or, the senior management have to go do a compulsory IT security training, which is mandated by RBI. So I think, yes, there are, of course, initiatives that we do as a bank, but as a regulator as well, there is a lot of focus on cyber security, especially for banks. I think to your question on
innovation.
I think innovation. I would say the one one key thing which which will really work for India is I think continue the jugaad. So I think there we have seen it across industries. And whether you look at telecom or even solar, India has through its own iteration become the lowest cost producer or forced some of the global companies, suppliers to become or think of a low cost solution which is which can make sense for a billion population. So I think that innovation will continue to be important.
Frugal engineering response. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Jose, you could take maybe that gentleman's question on preparing digital, creating the digital assets. Is that right? That was your question? Creating the digital skills too, yeah.
So what I can tell you is that as a company, not only in India, but everywhere in the world, we are, I said before that one of the innovations was about the organization, and I talked how we had put all our technical people together. We had created a new branch, and we call it a digital factory. And it's at headquarters level for all our branches, and we're getting ready for handling the terabytes and terabytes that we will need. There is no other way. We know that it has to be that way. There is no alternative to going green. There is no alternative to potential and to develop exponentially digital and artificial intelligence. And the possibilities, as I said, they are endless. So we're taking that very, very seriously, and we're working even at corporate level with a plan for all the company in all the countries. In terms, just because there was a question on recycling and working on the oil industry and the petrochemical industry, one of the key issues that we are facing is plastics and the long life of plastics, and it is an issue. But what I can tell you is that, again, there is no alternative than to recycle. We're putting a lot of money in research and development, and we're putting a lot of money actually in actively recycling plastics and going to the second and third and fourth life of it. Again, there is no alternative. We're facing some problems and we need to tackle them. Just to answer your question very quickly, there are two things that have surprised me here in India with all of this. One of them is the capacity of the country to manufacture very cheap and very efficiently. I've seen very directly the impact in solar panels, and there is the will to expand that. So again, I can see no limits for this country. And as I said then, is the impact on digital combined with renewable and low carbon energies that can really touch and change the life of the people.
Okay, thank you. Last word.
For the recycling, I think that effectively the industry has not the same starting point. You have industry like gas, petroleum has a huge experience to recycle products. It's not the case, for example, in the luxury industry. Or it's not the case for example, on the new battery for the electrical vehicle. So in this case, for example, we are working strongly on this topic for a large luxury company. We have decided to create a dedicated business unit to reship, to recycle the product. And for this company is a new way, because is first of all a potential of a new business to improve profit, and in some time it's clearly a strong lever to improve the sustainability and the CRR impact of the company. And for the battery of electrical vehicle is also because today in Europe we have major, huge program to develop gigafactories. Because we talk about electrical vehicle, but the problem is battery today. And we don't have the skills, because the skills today is located in China or Korea. So at the European level, it's a problem. So you invest a billion and billion to create from scratch this industry, but this industry is essentially chemical. And the recycling will be chemical. So we have reinvent in Europe a chemical industry, and especially to recycle batteries.
Okay, thank you very much, Ganesh and Jose and Benoit, and thank you, and my extended thanks to Bruno and everyone here for inviting me. Back to you.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen, for this superb discussion. Merci, Govindraj, for accepting to moderate the panel. Great thanks. And now we'll ask Mr. Ranini in a few words.
Yeah, because I think it's CCI for the organization, all the TNP, Indian TNP team.
Open the bar. Yeah. The bar is right on your left. So please go ahead.